Hi, Mark from Ariga here again, and welcome to this final video in our series on how to set up a basic Pipedrive system. This time we're going to be focusing on workflow, which is a fairly new feature and is a way of automating certain tasks within Pipedrive. So let's get straight on with it. So first of all, we need to go to our workflow section. Now this can actually be accessed directly from the menu that you get when you click on your name. You can see it there, so I'm going to click on that and get straight into it. Now, there are two types of workflows. There are personal ones, one done by you, and there are company ones. So I can view both here, but essentially that's the difference between system and personal ones. But we're going to get straight on, add a new workflow. So first thing we're asked to do is give it a name. So do that, just call it demo. Now, workflows themselves consist of three things, and the first thing that you need to set up is the trigger, i.e. the event that will actually start this workflow running. So let's go ahead and click in there. Now, you can trigger workflows on all four of the main entities, i.e. person, organisation, deal and activity, and when any of those are either created, updated or deleted. Now, the most typical one is deal, so that's one we'll use, and we're going to go for a deal updated. So we'll select that and click apply. Okay, so the next thing we need to add is the actual criteria that is going to force the workflow to trigger. So you don't really want this to run on every single deal update. So what we can do is we can add some criteria. So we click on the green plus there. Now this screen may look complicated, but actually it's quite easy. And all we need to do is start selecting the field that we want to look at in our criteria. So I'm going to go for deal stage, which is a typical one. And then what we actually want to look for. So in this case, I'm going to go deal stage has changed. So this workflow will trigger when a deal stage changes. But what about if we want it to only trigger when it's hit a certain stage? Well, we can add a second criteria. And if we then add deal stage again, and then we can say is, and then finally the stage we actually want. Note that for multiple pipelines it works as well, but we're going to go for proposal in our services pipeline. So now this is going to trigger off whenever the deal changes to the proposal stage in the services pipeline. Now note that we can make this an OR, but if you are doing an OR, please be careful. Remember your brackets. That's what this add new set button is all about. Just remember your Boolean logic. So you can see it appears in a different box here, i.e. it's a bracketed set of conditions. We don't need those for now, so I'm going to get rid of them. And then I'm going to apply my conditions. And note that it shows my conditions quite nicely at the top there. Now I can add a second set, but rarely need to do that. You can generally do it in one set. So the final thing we need to do is actually tell the workflow what is going to happen when it triggers, so the action. So we click on the plus button here. And there's several actions you can do, again on the main entities. So on deals, organisations and people, we can create new ones, we can update them, we can duplicate. We can also send emails, but only if you've got the full email integration set up. But again, a most common one is activity, so that's the one we're going to use, and we're going to go for creating an activity. Note the greyed out ones are because we haven't actually triggered this workflow off an activity. But let's go and create the activity. So once we've selected that, we can click next step. And what the system asks for now is it asks for a few details. So I'm going to give it the subject, which will be create proposal. And then I'm going to say it's going to create a deadline activity. Now there are a couple of other important fields that most typically you're going to want the workflow to create. So let's go and select those now. So normally you'd want a date, and also you're going to want to link it to the deal that triggered the workflow. So let's select linked deal. So on dates, it's quite useful. You can set it for some time in the future. There's all sorts of options here, so you can see me scrolling down there. But let's set it for 1 week's time. So I'm going to need to do this in 1 week. And finally, for the linked deal, we can either select a specific deal, or if you want to link to the deal that actually triggered the workflow, just select the deal tag there. Once we're happy, we click apply. Now again, we can see it all listed out there, what it's actually going to do. And we could add additional actions if we wished. Right, so there's a couple of more things I just want to show you, and probably the most important one is this drop down the bottom left here. So this basically dictates if this is a workflow that's going to trigger for everyone or just for me, i.e. is it a personal workflow or is it a system workflow? I'm going to make it a system one by saying it's for everyone. And finally is this little toggle switch here. Now this dictates whether the workflow is actually going to run or not. So at the moment it's off, so I'm just going to flick that to on. And then I'll give my workflow a save. And that's it. Right, let's go and test it. Let's go to my deals and wait for that to load. And then I'm going to move my deal from discovery to proposal, which if you remember was my trigger criteria. And now if I go to activities, I can see that it's created my activity with the deal and also the contact person and organisation pulled through to that activity as well for the correct date. And that's all you really need to know about workflows. They are super useful, can automate some tasks for you, make your life a little bit easier. Hope you found that useful. If you do need any help, as always, just drop us a line at the email on screen. And thanks once again for listening.